Hello and welcome to Education World. On this episode of Eduleader Speaks, we have with us Mr. Ashish Gulati. He is the Vice Chairman of the Global Group of Schools Gurugram. He has a first degree in engineering and is a postgraduate in management from the prestigious Management Development Institute of Gurugram. He has decades of experience working in the corporate sector. He joined the Board of Governors of Global Group of Schools in 2001. He has a keen interest in behavioral sciences and change management, and he's a strong advocate of following a child centric approach towards learning. Welcome, Mr. Gulati.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be on this platform.
So, with the ongoing elections in view, what are two specific expectations that you have from the government that will be appointed next?
Well, you see, we know that there is much to be desired in the school education space in our country. And the task is humongous because of the sheer size and numbers in our nation. Whereas we've come a long way since independence in context of school education, there is much to be desired in the government-run schools. So I would be very pleased if the government can focus on its own schools and make them more functional and contemporary. A stability in policies, including the content of education, is something that is very important. What has been seen in the past is that with the change in the government, the policies change. And whatever progress has been made is like 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward. As far as the private schools are concerned, by and large, the governments are now taking a positive approach towards private schools. They are being given adequate freedom to design their own curriculum, to deliver, to make the delivery which is contemporary and is benchmarked with international practices. And I would be, in that context, my own take is that the government should actually focus on its own schools because that's where the masses will get education.
If you're talking about present day issues, one of the most challenging issues is around cybersecurity and protecting children from online bullying. So, what are some ways in which you're helping your students in this regard?
Yes, you're right because children are very vulnerable to cyber crimes. Besides the fact that the adults are equally vulnerable, what makes children more vulnerable is that they are innocent and they trust easily. In the last 10 years, we have taken this up very proactively, and we have formed a cyber council, a council of students who are guided by an external expert. In our case, one Mr. Rakshit Tandon, who's an expert on cyber security in this part of the country. And he regularly conducts workshops. He guides the student council, and the student council is mentored by someone from the teaching faculty who is well versed with the issue. The students are urged to exercise all caution, and this has given us very positive results because the instances of our students being subjected to cyber abuse has significantly gone down.
I think this is a really interesting initiative, having some external expert come and talk to the students about how to stay safe online. In terms of curriculum or teaching methodologies, what are some of the new changes you've introduced at school, sir?
Well, you see, we are going through very exciting times now, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. Because India has now got exposure to international education. And in a city like Gurugram, or in cities like Bangalore. Most of the corporate professionals have had a couple of stints abroad. Some of them have even returned with their children having spent a couple of years in schools abroad.
Okay.
So this kind of travel has created a lot of cross-pollination. Now, there were two approaches that could have been taken. One approach was that we could have engaged an external agency to accomplish this task. The other approach was a road less traveled, a road which was more difficult, but we decided to take that, which is where we created an in-house training and development facility.
Okay.
And we began this in 2012. And we created this with the primary aim of the teachers getting empowered to develop their own curriculum, lesson plans, pedagogy, and other micro teaching methods.
Okay.
So now it also creates an ownership for the teacher. Whereas something that is prescriptively brought out from an outside agency is usually seen as an overstepping and does not empower the teachers. So this has yielded very good dividends for us.
Country is witnessing a major change with the introduction of NEP. So, so far, what is your view about the implementation of NEP?
Now, we are a huge country. So the implementation will certainly be a challenge. And the bigger challenge is changing the mindsets. And I would reiterate that an implementation, a rollout of the national education policy, unfortunately got disrupted by COVID because it was rolled out in 2020. But now the stakeholders are picking up the strings again, and they are actually making some movement in this regard. And I just want to reiterate that this is something which requires consistent persuasion on part of all stakeholders. And in this context, it's a document that's available to everybody. We, as private schools, should not expect the government to only play its part in implementation. I think we should move forward and adopt this as soon as possible, as best as possible, in the larger interest of the child and in the larger interest of an overall of our school education system.
You were, just talking about international boards being introduced to Indian schools. Now, another aspect on similar lines is allowing foreign schools rather, to set up campuses in India. So, what does this mean to Indian schools, the existing Indian schools?
The more the merrier. And like any other liberalization, what one would expect as a domestic entity is a level playing field for the Indian operators and the foreign operators.
Okay.
And what I see it shall do is it'll increase the competition, pretty much like it did in the 90s when the economy was opened up. So some of the players, they shaped up. Those who could not shape up had to ship out. And if we were to draw parallels from the automobile industry, when I was growing up, we lived with one Fiat and one ambassador brand. With the introduction of Maruti and subsequently the markets having opened up, a lot of players came in, they went out. A lot of realignment happened, a lot of market sorting happened. And finally, we see that international players are surviving. But what is equally encouraging to see is that the Indian players who have innovated, who've shaped up, have matched the service and the product quality of the foreign players. And the two big examples are Mahindra and Tata's. They are giving a run uh, for the money to the foreign players as well. And we've also seen that it is not always easy for the foreign players to also survive, to the international players to survive. Some of the recent examples are Ford, which had to exit the Indian market. Honda is another example. There have been other examples also. So, long and short, I think this is what will happen in school education and in higher education sector as well. There will be shake-up. The domestic players who have been enjoying protection uh, from the government in terms of foreign international players not being allowed in school education or in higher education, they will have to sit up and take stock of the reality. They will have to benchmark with the international practices. They will have to shape up. They will have to build stronger learning organizations. And they will have to make sure that the interest of the child, the student, is best taken care of.
We are, in fact, looking at a revolution of sorts. So the following questions are going to be one-word questions, and these are mostly about you. So who's that one thinker or philosopher that you follow?
So if you were to ask me the thinker, it's Freud.
Okay. And can you tell us about your leadership style in a word?
I try and practice transformational leadership.
Okay. And what's that one book on education that you recommend that all educationists pick up and read?
Oh, without a second thought, The Schools That Learn, Peter Singer's.
Okay. All right, sir. This brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you so much for this insightful discussion.
Been a pleasure. Thank you so much.